Something important is happening around Iraq's financial system, but it is not necessarily the dramatic overnight revaluation that some RV rumors suggest. The latest developments are giving Iraqi Dinar watchers a new reason to pay attention because Iraq's monetary and banking reforms are moving beyond discussions and into practical implementation. And that raises a very important question. Is Iraq quietly preparing the financial system for its next major phase? Before we go any further, let's make one thing clear. There is currently no official confirmation that the Iraqi dinar has suddenly revalued to a multi-dollar rate. The Central Bank of Iraq's publicly listed exchange rate information still shows the US dollar at around 1,310 Iraqi dinars, not a new $3, $4, or $5 per dinar rate. So today's story is not about claiming that an RV has already happened. It is about the quiet financial changes that are actually happening, and why currency watchers believe they could be important. One of the biggest developments came from the Central Bank of Iraq itself. The CBI recently announced progress toward reintegrating several banks that had previously faced restrictions on conducting foreign currency transactions in US dollars. According to reporting on the CBI announcement, those banks have completed requirements involving regulatory standards, anti-money laundering controls, counter-terrorism financing frameworks, and other parts of the banking reform process. The reintegration process is moving toward a gradual and orderly return to dollar-denominated transactions. Now think about what that means. This is not simply a headline. It represents another step toward bringing Iraqi banks closer to international banking standards. And that matters because the long-term strength and credibility of any currency depends heavily on the financial system supporting it. A currency does not operate in isolation. You can change a number on a screen, but if the banking system cannot efficiently process international transactions, comply with global standards, manage foreign currency, and maintain financial stability, the change cannot function properly at scale. That is why these banking reforms deserve attention. Another major development occurred earlier this year when Iraq appointed a new central bank governor. Nazar Nasser Hussain took over leadership of the CBI in June 2026 after spending more than 25 years at the institution. His background includes financial regulation and anti-money laundering work. And this is where things get interesting. The appointment comes at a time when Iraq is under pressure to strengthen financial stability while continuing banking reforms and improving its integration with the international financial system. So we now have several developments happening at the same time. A new central bank governor, continued banking sector reforms, progress toward reintegrating previously restricted banks, more focus on anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing standards, and continued modernization of Iraq's financial infrastructure. For people following the Iraqi dinar, this combination naturally raises questions. Could these reforms eventually create the conditions for a stronger dinar? Could Iraq eventually change its exchange rate policy? Could the banking system be preparing for a different monetary environment? Those are legitimate questions, but there is still a major difference between creating the conditions for future monetary flexibility and actually announcing a revaluation. And right now, the official evidence supports the first story, not the second. The CBI has also specifically dealt with exchange rate rumors this year. In June, the Central Bank of Iraq stated that a circulating document claiming that the bank was requesting a change in the dinar's exchange rate was forged. That is extremely important for anyone following RV news, because it demonstrates exactly why we have to separate genuine developments from online rumors. There may be real reforms happening quietly. There may be real changes inside Iraq's banking sector. There may be real efforts to modernize the financial system. But that does not mean every document, screenshot, or alleged exchange rate announcement circulating online is genuine. In fact, the CBI's response to the forged document is a reminder that viewers should always verify major claims through official sources. Now let's look at another piece of the story. The central bank has also been working on strengthening the exchange company sector. A recent CBI update indicated that the bank is exploring ways to develop this sector, while it has also taken regulatory actions involving exchange companies. That might sound like a small technical development, but it is actually part of the bigger picture. Iraq is working to make its financial system more regulated, more transparent, and more compatible with international standards. And when you put these developments together, you can see why some observers are saying that Iraq is moving from talks to action. The action is not necessarily an RV. The action is the infrastructure, the regulations, the compliance systems, the banking reforms, the international integration, the modernization of payments, and those things can matter enormously if Iraq eventually wants to make significant changes to its monetary framework. There is another interesting development that deserves attention. The CBI said it had completed technical and procedural preparations to increase spending limits on electronic payment cards used by registered companies and businesses. The stated goal is to expand digital financial services and support financial inclusion. Again, this does not mean an RV, but it does tell us something about the direction of Iraq's financial system. The direction is toward more digital transactions, stronger controls, greater banking integration, and modernization. And that is exactly the type of infrastructure a modern economy needs. So why are RV watchers connecting these developments to the Iraqi dinar? Because historically, major currency changes are easier to implement when the underlying financial system is stable and capable of handling them. But here's where we need to remain realistic. A stronger banking system does not automatically mean a stronger exchange rate. A country can modernize its banking system while keeping its currency exchange rate relatively stable. And that appears to be the situation at the moment. The CBI's publicly available rate remains around 1,310 Iraqi dinars per US dollar. So if someone tells you that a massive revaluation has already been officially announced, ask them for the CBI announcement. If they show you a screenshot, verify it. If they mention a secret bank rate, ask whether an independent financial source has confirmed it. And if they give you a specific future date, remember that a prediction is not the same thing as an official monetary decision. This is particularly important in 2026 because the Iraqi financial system is genuinely undergoing changes. When real reform happens, it creates an environment where rumors can spread even faster. People see a new governor. They see banking restrictions being addressed. They see compliance reforms. They see digital payment expansion. They see international financial cooperation. And then they start asking, what's coming next? That question is understandable, but the answer should come from evidence. And right now, the evidence tells us that Iraq is continuing its financial modernization, not that a specific RV rate has been activated. Another important factor is Iraq's international financial position. The country has been working on anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing measures, and the CBI reported in June that the Financial Action Task Force had adopted Iraq's action plan in this area. That kind of development matters because international financial relationships depend heavily on compliance and transparency. When banks become more compliant and better connected with international institutions, cross-border financial activity can become easier and more credible. Again, this is not an automatic currency revaluation, but it is a meaningful part of the broader financial transformation. And that is why I believe the phrase, "from talks to action," is important. For years, people have discussed Iraq's banking reforms. Now we're seeing actual regulatory steps. We're seeing banks work toward compliance. We're seeing restrictions addressed. We're seeing digital payment infrastructure expand. We're seeing leadership change at the central bank. And we're seeing continued attention to international financial standards. These are tangible developments. The next question is whether these reforms eventually translate into a different exchange rate policy. That remains unknown, and nobody should claim certainty where there is none. But if you're an Iraqi dinar watcher, these are the signals worth monitoring. Not random screenshots, not anonymous posts, not secret rate claims. Instead, watch the Central Bank of Iraq. Watch official exchange rate tables. Watch banking regulations. Watch international financial integration. Watch monetary policy statements. And watch for any formal announcement concerning the exchange rate regime. Because if a major change actually happens, those are the places where the evidence will ultimately appear. And there is one more thing to keep in mind. A genuine currency rate change does not necessarily happen in the dramatic way portrayed in viral videos. It could involve a policy announcement. It could involve a gradual adjustment. It could involve changes to the exchange rate framework. It could involve redenomination or other monetary reforms. There are multiple possible mechanisms. That is why focusing only on a specific rumored number can distract from the bigger economic story. The bigger story is that Iraq is continuing to rebuild and modernize its financial infrastructure. And that is happening right now. So, where does that leave the Iraqi dinar in August 2026? The official rate has not suddenly jumped to the extraordinary figures often mentioned in RV communities. But Iraq's financial system is clearly evolving. The CBI is continuing reforms. Previously restricted banks are moving toward reintegration into dollar transactions after meeting requirements. Digital financial services are expanding. Regulatory standards are being strengthened. A new central bank governor has taken office. And Iraq is continuing efforts to align its financial system with international standards. Those are real developments, and they are worth watching. So if you hear someone say, the Iraqi dinar is moving from talks to action, the most accurate interpretation is this. The financial reforms are moving into practical implementation. That does not mean an RV has already been confirmed. It does not mean a specific new exchange rate is guaranteed. And it certainly does not mean every rumor circulating online is true. But it does mean Iraq's banking and financial transformation is a story worth following closely. And if the monetary policy ever changes in a significant way, the strongest signal will not be a viral post. It will be official evidence. Until then, stay alert, but stay informed. Because in the Iraqi dinar story, the quiet changes happening inside the banking system may be far more important than the loudest rumors on social media. This video is for informational and educational purposes only and is not financial or investment advice. Rumored future exchange rates and RV claims should not be treated as confirmed unless officially verified by the relevant authorities.